CEO and chairman of Canada's or Western Canada's biggest publishing company, Canada Wide Media Limited, a best-selling author, Mr. Peter Legge. Welcome back to It's Time with Sherry, Peter.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yes, how are you doing today?
Excellent. It's a great day today.
Yes, you look great today.
Well, thank you. That's because I'm with you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So we will talk about you being a best-selling author of 21 books, right?
21 books.
21 books. So how were you able to write 21 books for a span of that's 20 years or less?
Well, it's probably taken me 30 years.
30 years.
I would say from inception to publication is about a year and a half. You've got to come up with the idea and the theme and what you're going to write about and what's going to impact people. And then probably 7 to 8 months of writing. The books are about 200, 220 pages. So I would say a year and a half to 2 years per book from the moment you think about it till the day it actually comes from the publishers.
What is the first book that you have ever written?
It was called To Soar with the Eagles, which was actually the name of one of my speeches.
Yes.
And people said, well, you should put some of your ideas down in a book. And I thought, oh no, I'm not really an author, I'm a speaker. But they kept persisting, so I said, okay, I'll do that. So I wrote out some of my speeches and put in the book, and it was called How to Soar with the Eagles. And people love that.
Yes, How to Soar with the Eagles. So tell us, how is it to soar with the eagles?
Well, it's really a discipline. You've got to really believe that you have a limited lifespan on this earth, and you want to maximize your time here with your spouse, with your children, with your grandchildren, with your community, with those people that you work with. And you need to be the best boss, the best employee, the best person you can possibly be. Don't be worried about being the best in the world. Just be the best that you can be.
Yes.
And impact as many people as you can. Ask them good questions, listen to their answers. One of the things is, if you listen to somebody and you ask them good questions, they get better looking as you ask those questions.
Oh, yeah. That is true.
Yeah.
Okay, so from How to Soar with the Eagles, fast forward, you have written already 21 books. What inspires you to write those books? Where do you get those ideas?
Well, I think, I actually know it augments my speaking.
Yeah.
So when I finished a speech, let's say I was speaking tomorrow to 500 people, before I had books, people would say, well, do you have any books? Because I couldn't write the stories down. What my speeches are and what my books are really stories.
Yeah.
Stories about life, things that I've done, things that I've failed at, things that I wish I'd have done. And people like to do that because a lot of people feel that if they failed or if they haven't accomplished, if they haven't become first place, they're going to pack it in. Well, that's rubbish. You got to keep driving on. You got to keep pursuing. You got to keep pursuing your dream. As I look back at that first book, I'm thinking this is basically rubbish, but it was my first book. I write my next book, and it's a little better, and the next book's a little better. So the writing gets better, the information that you glean, your experiences get better, and so you write about those experiences.
Yes, and when you write about those experiences, people who read your books get back to you.
Yes.
What do they tell you about the books that you've written?
Well, the interesting thing is, I said the most common comment is they like the story, but they've experienced the story in their life, something like that, but they never thought of writing it down.
Yeah.
They've done something or had something happen to them very similar to the story that I've told or written. And so I said, well, then write that story down and write your own book.
Yeah.
About your stories, because people love stories.
Yes.
Life is one big story.
That is so true. One of the books that I have read that you have written is The Power of Tact.
Yes.
And you have series of that, right?
Yes.
Why did you choose to write about the power of tact?
Well, because my father, we were born in England. My mother and father emigrated to Canada when I was 12 years old. And it was a new country for my dad, and he didn't know exactly what he should or shouldn't be doing, and he lived in New Westminster. He did his business in New Westminster. He spent his entire life in Canada in New Westminster, became Citizen of the Year, and he served just about every community endeavor that was going on in the community. And so he would say to me, son, you can do that. You can serve the community. Now you might have a bigger community, but that's how he inspired me. And the book that inspired him was by Sir James Lubbock, called Tact. It was an old book, little book, maybe only this big, and he came across it, and he would carry it on his inside pocket every single day. And when he was in a situation that he didn't know for sure how to handle, he would bring out the book Tact and look how to do it, and look how to deal with people and talk to people and listen to people. And so it became his lifespan, the book Tact, by Sir James Lubbock. I think it's out of print now. It's just a blue book.
Yeah, and that's why you proceeded to print and to write your own book, The Power of Tact. Okay.
The one thing he said to me, he said, never accept success or failure, because neither need be permanent.
Yes.
Neither success or failure need to be permanent. So you've got to keep doing the good things in life for all of your life.
Yes. So tell us first about Lunch with Joe.
Well, in Vancouver, there's a gentleman by the name of Joe Siegel, who's a billionaire. Was born in Vegreville, Alberta. Served in World War II with the Calgary Highlanders, and he never graduated high school because his father passed away, and he was the breadwinner for his brother and his sister and his mother. And so he served in Europe for 2.5 years at the end of World War II. He came back to Vancouver, and he wasn't sure what he would do for a living. But he recognized that while he was in Europe, he was watching all of the used army surplus goods being discarded and thrown away or destroyed. And he thought, well, maybe if I bought them and shipped them back to Vancouver and sold them, maybe I could make some money. Well, that's exactly what he did. So one of the stories is he bought the battleship gray paint. He bought gallons and gallons and gallons of this paint. Very cheap, very inexpensive. Had it shipped to Vancouver, and then someone said to him, well, you've got all this paint, what are you going to do with it? And this is going back 50 or 60 years. So he put it in a truck, and he went into the Fraser Valley. He started in Ladna, went to the Fraser Valley. In those days, it wasn't nearly as populous as it is today. And he sold the farmers this battleship gray paint for their barns. So at a point in time, every barn from Langley to Cloverdale to Ladna was all painted battleship gray paint from the paint that he got from World War II cheap. And that's how he started his fortune. Became a billionaire and is one of the great developers in this province. He's 95 in January. He's been a dear friend for years, and he's been my mentor, my single mentor for over 50 years.
And the book Lunch with Joe contains different stories.
The old stories of his life, of his experiences, of his wisdom and his knowledge, and how he overcame his deficits.
Now, what I always refer to is your book, The Power of Tenacity. What's your inspiration behind this book, The Power of Tenacity? There's like power behind that book. Many people who get to read that get inspired to do better.
Well, it actually stemmed from, I have lunch with Joe about every 5 or 6 weeks. Same restaurant for 50 years. In fact, I've had more single lunches with Joe than almost anyone else. He said to me in one of his lunches, he said, you know, the people who really succeed have tenacity. They don't give up easily. They're not discouraged easily. And so I wrote that down, tenacity. I thought, oh, tenacity, And he said, and you've got tenacity. You don't give up. You keep pursuing. You may have to change direction because not everything you're doing is right. But you don't give up. And so he was the inspiration behind that. And so I call it the power of tenacity. And the power of tenacity is if you keep pursuing the right path with your God-given gifts and talents, it's unbelievable what you can accomplish in your life. So that's where the idea came from.
Wonderful. Now you are writing or about to publish another book. Your latest book is going to come out in January. Tell us about this.
Well, it first started, the working title for that book, it's my 23rd book, I think. The working title was Tell Me Your Story. And I liked that. I thought, tell me your story. And because everyone has a story. And I noticed in my speeches, when I tell stories, people like that best of all, because it's actually, I'm telling the truth. I'm telling them a story that they've done they've done something and experienced something very similar to what I've experienced. So as the writing went on, I thought, no, I changed the title, and we called it, you know the title, what's it called?
Under the Influence.
Yes. It was first called Influence.
Yes.
The second title was called Influence, and I didn't like that. Then I talked to my editor, and she said, you know what? You're under the influence of your stories, of your experiences. So let's call the book Under the Influence. So that's the title. It will be called Under the Influence. And if you look at your experiences, the things that you've accomplished in your life, and perhaps you've messed up in your life, you'll use those to be better at what you're doing. So you're under the influence of your own stories,
Yes.
good and bad.
Yes. But as an author, how would you like to be remembered as an author?
I'm not sure about that. I've never really thought about that. I think the stories that I write are as good today as they were like 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yes.
And you may not have read the story. Someone may just give you a book today, and you could be reading a story that I experienced, say, 15 years ago. And as you read that story, you might say to yourself, I did something like that, but I didn't act on it.
Yeah.
I did something like that, but I didn't learn anything from it. So maybe if you learn the lessons of your own life, your own stories, and how they have influenced you to be a better reporter, to be a better EA, to be a better assistant, to be a better person, to be a better wife, to be a better mother, to be a better person.
Yes.
That's what we have to strive for.
Wonderful. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would also want or aspire to be an author someday. What is a piece of advice that you can tell them?
Get a blank page, get a pen, and start writing.
Exactly. You just got to do it.
Yeah.
Even if it does not come out good.
That's right.
You just got to do it.
And start with where you were born.
Yeah.
And what happened to you as a little kid. And how you moved from this house to that house, and how your parents emigrated to another country, and how you got fired from a job, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just write it.
Yes.
And then get a good editor, and that editor will clean it up, and they won't rewrite it for you, but they'll clean it up and put the punctuation in it, and you'll have a book.
Yes.
And publish the book.
Publish the book. Just do it.
Do it.
Yes.
Just do it. It does. You know, you're not a Hemingway.
Yes.
And I'm not a Hemingway. I don't pretend to be. But the stories are important for people to read of what I've been able to achieve. I'm just an ordinary, run-of-the-mill guy that has decided I want to do something significant in my life if I can. And I've recorded it in my books.
Yes.
And people say, if he can do it, I can do it.
Wonderful. If there's one thing that keeps you going every single day, what is that?
First of all, it's my wife. She encourages me, and she uplifts me, and she tells me I can do it.
Yes.
Then I've got my 3 girls, and depending on the age of my grandchild, I got a 2-year-old. He doesn't know what he's saying to me yet. His name is well, the oldest is Benjamin. They encourage me in a different way. They love me regardless of my faults. They love me because I'm granddad. So be a community leader. Give back more than you take. Don't worry about what you'll get back, because you'll get it back. You'll get it back infinitely more than you ever thought.
Yes.
People will respect you, admire you, and they'll want to do business with you.
Yes.
Because they trust you. Never lie, cheat, or steal ever for any reason. For any reason. Be 100% faithful in what you're doing. And I've made my mistakes, and I've been forgiven for them. That's wonderful. But going forward, the last 15 to 20 years, it's do the very best you can.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for this interview.
My pleasure,
Peter.
Sharon. My pleasure. My pleasure. And
Wonderful.
thank you.
Yes. All right. So there you have it. Very inspiring thoughts and, of course, aspirational advice from Mr. Peter Legge, no other than the best-selling author of 21 books going to 22 this January. Don't forget, if there's anything worth doing, it's worth doing well. I'm Chari for It's Time with Chari. Till next time, here on Sky Cable TV 34, MY channel. And of course, please, if you like this video, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Chari Gilon. Have a great day.
Get a copy of The Power of Tenacity and The Power of Tact. Log on to peterlegge.com or email at info@peterlegge.com.